Women communicate attraction in ways that are subtle, emotional, and often invisible to men who are expecting direct signals. And for mature men especially, this becomes even more important, because women tend to see older men through a different psychological lens. They expect more presence, more emotional stability, and more clarity of self. A younger man can be uncertain and still be seen as figuring things out, but a man over 50 is often interpreted differently. He is assumed to have lived enough life to understand who he is and what he wants. That is why interest rarely shows up as obvious flirting. It shows up as curiosity, questions, tone shifts, and emotional engagement. When a woman asks questions that touch your emotional availability or your direction in life, she is not simply collecting information. She is sensing you. She is trying to feel your inner world. She wants to know if being closer to you would feel safe, stable, and emotionally meaningful, or distant and closed. Most men miss this because they listen only to the surface of what is being said. But attraction often lives underneath the words, not inside them. If you pay close attention, you will notice that interest often shows itself through small behavioral shifts. She stays a little longer in conversation than necessary. She asks follow-up questions that don't seem essential. She reacts more emotionally to your answers than the situation requires. She becomes more attentive to details you mention casually. These are not coincidences. They are signals of engagement. And in these moments, what matters most is not impressing her, not performing, and not trying to force connection. It is presence, the ability to stay grounded, calm, and fully aware of the interaction as it unfolds. Because attraction for most women is not triggered by intensity. It is triggered by emotional safety combined with curiosity. When she feels both, she leans in naturally. When she feels pressure or confusion, she steps back just as naturally. This is also why men over 50 often underestimate their own attractiveness. They assume they are competing with youth, but in reality, many women are responding more to emotional maturity than to age itself. A grounded presence, a calm voice, and a stable emotional state often communicate far more value than appearance alone ever could. Now, there is another layer to this dynamic that most men overlook completely. Sometimes a woman's interest is not expressed through questions or conversation at all. It appears in behavior. She mirrors your posture without realizing it. She aligns her energy with yours in subtle ways. She becomes more expressive around you than she is with others. Her attention becomes slightly more focused when you speak. These are unconscious indicators of emotional resonance. They are not planned or calculated. They simply happen when someone feels comfortable and drawn to another person's presence. And yet, even with all of these signals, confusion still happens, because many men are trained to look for certainty instead of subtlety. But attraction is rarely certain in the beginning. It is gradual. It builds through micro moments, through tone, through timing, and through emotional consistency. This is especially true in mature relationships, where people are more guarded, more aware of past experiences, and more selective with emotional investment. Which is why understanding female psychology at this level is not about learning tricks or responses. It is about learning awareness. Awareness of tone. Awareness of timing. Awareness of emotional shifts in conversation. Awareness of how presence affects connection. Because once you understand this, your entire perception changes. You stop interpreting interactions at face value and start recognizing the emotional language underneath them. And that is where most missed opportunities actually happen, not because interest wasn't there, but because it wasn't recognized. At the end of the day, attraction is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself slowly through behavior, curiosity, and emotional pacing. And the men who learn to notice this don't become more aggressive or strategic. They simply become more present, and presence is what changes everything.